Literally every time I do this, I end up regretting it because I hate giving these analysts exactly what they want, which is attention for their bad takes. But I can't resist doing it, and these videos do well, so I guess I can't complain. If you end up enjoying this video, please be sure to subscribe for more weekly NBA content. Also drop a like. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. I saw a clip the other day on Twitter that really annoyed me. The other day, the Lakers played the Minnesota Timberwolves, and naturally, the Lakers being who they are, they embarrassed themselves versus the red-hot T-Wolves. This embarrassment was most obvious when after an air ball on a corner three, both Karl-Anthony Towns and Patrick Beverley had some trolling and mocking to do, which frankly, I found hilarious. But a bunch of losers with no fun in their heart decided to be offended by this, and weirdly enough, among that crowd was Stephen A. Smith, which is extremely confusing.
But Karl-Anthony Towns is better than what he was last night. You taunting Russell Westbrook like that, I will remind you, this is your 7th year in the league, Karl-Anthony Towns. You went to the playoffs once. The other 6 times, you did that. And Russell Westbrook, for all his stubbornness and all of the rocking the baby and all of this other stuff, as you said, he never cheats the game with his effort and what have you. He is clearly having an absolutely positively miserable season, the worst season of his career. But to mock him like that, I was like, damn, that's kind of classless, y'all. Y'all could do better than that, especially when you Minnesota and you ain't been doing anything for the better part of the last 2 decades. You're having a good season now, congrats to you. But damn, it was a little excessive, a little bit unclassy, I might say.
Okay, first things first, let me address the surface level stuff. I will make it clear why the title is what it is later on in the video, but just for this section, we're going to talk about his argument at face value. So the thing about Steven's argument here is that it is incoherent, brings up points that are irrelevant, and really he only has one solid point that's not even well backed up. Essentially, he's saying that because Cat and the Timberwolves are not an accomplished player or team, they are not allowed to taunt their opponent in any way. Like, because you aren't the biggest success story in the world, you can't talk shit. I mean, to be fair, just going into this, we are not talking about some, like, strictly factual thing. This is all semantics, and it's not like a numerical thing or a well-established factual thing. It's basketball culture. Every rule around trash talking in basketball is an unwritten rule. There is no written rule about trash talk. But from my experience growing up and from being in the NBA/basketball world pretty much since I was 8 years old, what are you talking about, Steven? There isn't an unwritten rule that you have to be great to talk shit. Now, if you aren't great and you talk shit and you don't back it up, you might get that shoved back in your face, but no one's saying you can't do it. I would know this because I am extremely mid depending on where and what my competition is, and I talk trash all the time. And especially as a fan watching on the sidelines, to police what players can and cannot talk trash is like seriously some nerd shit. From Russ's point of view, I understand him bringing up his accomplishments in the press conference after the fact, because really that's just another form of trash talk. Yeah, I airballed, but I'm more accomplished and a better player overall than you. But for someone who isn't involved in the action, is just consuming it, just someone watching, whether it be an analyst or a fan, to try and say who can and cannot trash talk is just weird. Trying to police their speech and call them classless, like, that's not your place. It's also worth mentioning that Russ hasn't made it out of the first round as a #1 option either, just like Karl-Anthony Towns, and the poor circumstances around him have nothing to do with the caliber of player he is, but I digress. Overall, though, this take is not something that I would make a video about under normal circumstances. It's really not a big deal. It's not worth making a fuss about, just like them making fun of Russ for airballing that 3 was really not a big deal worth making a fuss about. However, it's less the take and more who said it. Wow, it is really hard to find a take from Stephen A. Smith that is more hypocritical than this one, and that is saying a lot because analysts in general, even myself if you want to include me in that category, they tend to be wishy-washy and walking contradictions. In my case, I'd like to think it's because my opinions have changed drastically over the years and I am very open to being wrong. I would have a less charitable interpretation for Stephen A. Smith. I think it's less what he believes and more just whatever is going to get the most attention. But anyways, why am I calling Stephen A. hypocritical for this take in regards to class when talking to NBA players or about NBA players? Watch this.
They gave up Kwame Brown. Who
first
cares?
rounders.
I could care less.
Tied into his salary for 4 years.
First of all, understand something. When you're giving up first round picks, if you are a quality team in playoff contention, it really doesn't mean that much. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, Kwame Brown is gone. The city of Angels, Hollywood, just should be celebrating. Throw a parade already, whether you win a championship or not. This man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play. No disrespect whatsoever, but I'm sorry to tell everybody the truth. The man cannot play the game of basketball.
This is the most infamous clip in Stephen A. Smith's career, where he blatantly, unequivocally disrespects a player in a classless fashion. Whether you agree or not with what Stephen is saying, because to be clear, Kwame Brown was very bad at basketball, especially on the Lakers. That is not relevant to the discussion as to whether or not how he went about his talk was classless or not. If we're going to say that Cat jokingly looking for where the ball is after an air ball is disrespectful and classless, I don't know how you wouldn't call this exactly that and then some. But let's look at an even more extreme example that seems less extreme on the surface but is pretty bad when you actually know the context.
I want a big fat picture of Josh Gordon, next to it $5 million, and then I want the screen wiped away, blacked. Weed. That's how much it cost you. Because you can't get off the weed, you've lost millions of dollars. Y'all ain't getting me to feel sorry for nobody like that. I refuse. I can't take it. I can't take it. It's millions of dollars. And all you have to do is stay off the weed. And you can't do it? I'm supposed to feel sorry for you?
Here we have another example of an all-time infamous Stephen A. Smith clip. This time he's talking about weed and Josh Gordon, who was suspended for the season in the NFL for smoking weed. Now, gonna make the same observation that literally everybody else does, but you beat your wife, you get a couple games suspended, but you smoke a harmless plant and you get the season suspended. Really cool rules, NFL. But back to this take, Stephen once again establishes a pillar in what has been a very successful career, this time off of the back of Josh Gordon. Just like with Kwame, this story is essentially a failure of some degree or another that is used by Stephen A. Smith to prop his own career up as he kicks them while they are down. Josh Gordon has a serious history of addiction that can be tracked all the way back to his childhood, and that was the downfall of his career. And that was not handled with even the remotest amount of class that you should for something so severe. Rather, it's all about how he's not sorry for him. Stephen A. Smith in this clip is kicking a man while he is down. There's no other way around it. That's what's happening here. Now, this is something that Stephen pointed out in his original clip talking about the Cat faking Russ airball thing. Don't be mean to Russ, guys. He's already having the worst season of his career. We don't need to kick him while he's down. That would be classless. This, of course, is fine, though, because you get a good meme out of it, and it means your next contract is going to be a little bit bigger. Now, for the potential Stephen A. Smith defenders, I don't know that they exist, but being my experience on the internet in this space, I'm sure they do. You could argue these are some old clips and maybe Stephen A. Smith has changed how he talks about athletes. But no, here's a recent clip that really pissed me off.
But last night was your first game in Brooklyn since the trade, which happened just 3 days earlier, and you on the bench smiling up a storm. The world is beautiful, suddenly. Okay? These are all things that are inconsistent with a person that, according to the report, swore up and down they had mental health issues. Please understand, mental health issues are a very, very serious thing. And you don't just throw that out for no reason, okay? If he's having those issues, we definitely are sensitive to it. The problem is half the people out there don't believe him.
That is not how it fucking works. A goddamn smile does not mean that you are not depressed. And you don't get to say this, of course mental health is a serious issue line, and then proceed to dismiss someone's mental health. Now, if you've watched my deep dive on mental health in sports, specifically focusing on the Ben Simmons situation, you would understand why this is such a big deal to me. But for real, I cannot put it any plainer than this. If you suggest that Ben is faking his mental health issues, which Stephen A. does for this entire segment, you are discrediting the idea of respecting mental health in the first place. Do not tiptoe around it. You cannot platform this very dangerous and harmful argument and then proceed to claim that you're a mental health advocate. If you're dismissing someone's mental health, which questioning it is inherently doing so, you're not an advocate, to say the fucking least. Now, you might be thinking this is less disrespectful than the Kwame and the Josh Gordon clip, but really it couldn't be more. Sure, on the surface it appears that way, but it's just because he's not so much using his disrespectful over-the-top tone. He isn't using this crazy persona like he does in the Kwame or Gordon clips where he's overly animated. But what he's actually saying, the impact of his actual words, is far more damaging than just saying that Kwame has small hands and he can't play basketball. I don't know where Stephen A. Smith gets the gall to call Karl Anthony Towns classless for making fun of an airball when he has this on his resume. And mind you, I am just scratching the surface because Stephen has essentially made a career out of being classless towards athletes. Stephen conducts himself in this way almost constantly. He puts on a fancy suit and picks a new word out of his He puts on a fancy suit and picks out a new word out of his He puts on a fancy suit and he picks out a new word out of his thesaurus. Why can't I fucking say thesaurus? Thesaurus. Because Stephen A. Smith conducts himself like this constantly. He puts on a fancy suit and he picks a new word out of his thesaurus between... What the fuck? Stephen A. Smith conducts himself like this constantly. He puts on a fancy suit and he picks out a fancy word out of the... This line will be the death of me. Thesaurus. Thesaurus. Stephen A. Smith conducts himself like this constantly. He puts on a fancy suit and he picks out a new word from the Okay. Stephen A. conducts himself like this constantly. He puts on a fancy suit and takes out a new word from the thesaurus before every show, but it's really just a facade to give this notion of decorum and class, but he does it while disrespecting players constantly. The way he behaves is the antithesis of class. So frankly, I don't give a fuck what Stephen A. Smith has to say in regards to the class of how players are interacting, because the pedestal in which he has put himself on is built on classless and disrespectful takedowns and criticisms of athletes. The way Stephen performs his job is inherently classless, as much as he may attempt to disguise it and then proceed to act above it. Also, what the fuck have you accomplished to earn the right to talk shit about these players? Like, if non-accomplished NBA players are not allowed to talk shit, but a fan or commentator is? What sense does that make? Don't get me wrong, I really detest the "you didn't play in the NBA, therefore your argument is invalid" point of view. I really hate that. But surely, if a player in the league who is not accomplished within that league is not allowed to talk shit, then obviously someone who's not even in the fucking league shouldn't be. If Cat cannot talk shit or mock Russell Westbrook because Russ is a more accomplished player than him as an athlete, I don't understand why you can talk shit and mock Kwame Brown, Josh Gordon, and Ben Simmons because they are very much more accomplished than you as athletes. What gives you that right over them? Why does that rule not apply to you? Well, it's because Stephen A. Smith is a hypocrite. As you can tell, I had some shit that I wanted to talk about. This clip was like rent-free in my head for like all of yesterday. So here's the video. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like, subscribe for more content like this, and cue the outro music.